Did I? Yeah. I went through this door. Script. I don't think so. I think that's Ms. That's Ms. Walter. Nolter? No, Ms. Nolter. Sunquilla. Cribs. I want to say Dolinar. I think it's Miss. I don't think she's going to be here today. Riker. Krakowski. Coney. Gregory. Stambaugh. Collins. This is Nolter. Nolter. Oh, come on. There she is. Where's Brower? No, not Owens. Dolinar. Nope. Pretty sure it's Dolinar. Yeah. This. Let's see. Is it Dolinar? Thought so. Arms, Miss Gilgar. She said she's not going to be here, right? Okay. All right. Ms. Seaback? Ms. Seaback? I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we speak after class, please? Yes. Thank you. Okay, good to see you all again. Just to let you know, or hopefully you've seen it, but you should have been getting emails that the student evaluations have opened online. So please take a chance to do them, please. Just check your emails because they should be sending you something. I don't know if it's every day or might be every day, but anyways, they should have sent you something in your email. I have here a video that CBS News did several years ago. Don't know how many more they did. I looked, I can only find 2, this one and another one. Nevertheless, I stumbled across this a while back and thought it was interesting. It's 26 minutes or over 26 minutes, but it covers Tibetan Buddhism, Christian Science, and Jainism, all in 26 plus minutes. Well, they give you a taste. They give you a little bit of a taste of what each of these religions is about. And so I thought I would play it for you and then make some comments and explain some things that they talk about. And today, and I'm assuming that it will go over into Tuesday as well when we come back. Remember, Tuesday's our last class, yes? Okay. So here, I'll start this for us. Oh, I would suggest, of course, that you take notes on it as best you're able to.
In the Buddha teaching, every living being has the beautiful potential known as Buddha nature.
Everyone's inherent nature is this inconceivable state of wisdom, loving kindness, compassion.
Only we have to let it wake up.
My own experience has proven to me time and time and time again that Christian Science heals.
Mary Baker Eddy saw that there were laws behind the healings of Jesus, that she could heal other people, and then she could teach other people to heal others.
It's getting the human mind out of the way and allowing the divine mind and divine consciousness to be present.
The heart and soul of Jainism lies in ahimsa, not to cause injury to others, all forms of life.
If you believe in non-violence and not hurting people, vegetarian, you are dead.
CBS presents World Religions, Tibetan Buddhism, Christian Science, and Jainism. The narrator is Ted Holmes.
Buddhism was founded in the 6th century in northern India. The religion's founder is known as Gautama Buddha.
The essence of the Buddha teaching is to be kind and to be nice and to feel happy.
The Venerable Khenpo Sewang Rinpoche is the founder of Padma Samye Ling, a Tibetan Buddhist monastery in upstate New York.
Then wherever you go, always be calm and peaceful, watch your mind. Those are what the teachings.
Siddhartha Gautama was born the son of a king and lived a privileged and sheltered life.
In his early 20s, he was venturing outside of the usual area of where he was kept, and he started to see like people sick and people getting old and people dying. And that immediately caused the question in his mind, will this happen to me? That led him to look inwardly. What is the cause of this trouble, all this suffering?
The fundamental cause of suffering is one's own deed and one's own action and the negative emotions such as ignorance and attachment, anger.
Gautama left the palace and went to live the life of a monk. While meditating under a Bodhi tree, he attained enlightenment.
The principal cause of suffering that he found was that core feeling that I have this fixed permanent, singular, independent, unchanging self in here, which I so strongly feel is there. That me actually isn't there. It's not findable. That was his enlightenment. Without filtering everything through this narrow sense of grasping ego clinging, it's peace, it's loving, it's calm, it's infinitely available.
The way out of suffering is through ethical conduct, thought, and meditation.
Just be in the moment, in the present state, and then bring more love and joy and kindness for all beings and yourself. And that is not meditation and perfect concentration.
Meditation is a technique that will quiet the mind and actually help the mind look into itself. It doesn't matter if we're in a corporate world or raising kids, if we can connect to that nature and have that motivation of love and compassion and kindness, then everything's practice.
Maybe it's good to have some challenge, difficult, so that will make ourselves strong. We not just become marshmallows, bunch of marshmallows. We learn and grow deeply ourselves.
By the 8th century, Buddhism had flourished throughout Asia before becoming established in Tibet, a rural, mountainous country north of India.
Within Tibetan Buddhism, there is a lot of outer ceremony. There's wearing the clothes one wears, there's during the practices, there's recitation of different prayers and instruments played and offerings made. Murals reminding us of the Buddha natures, wisdom and compassion. This is all there as a support for our inner meditation.
Tibetan Buddhists look to His Holiness the Dalai Lama as their leader. Until recently, he was also the leader of the Tibetan government in exile.
He is the great emanation of the Buddha of compassion. His activity, his love, his kindness, his courage, his openness brought so much calm and peace, harmonious to the Tibetan people.
In 1950, Tibet was invaded by China.
The sound of red Chinese guns.
Since the invasion, it's estimated that nearly 1 million Tibetans have lost their lives, and 6,000 monasteries were destroyed.
In the consequential struggle, the Chinese armed forces destroyed a large number of monasteries. Many lamas were killed.
150,000 refugees fled across the border to India, Nepal, and beyond. Among those refugees was the Venerable Khenpo Sewang Rinpoche. When he was 9, he and his family were forced to leave eastern Tibet in the dead of winter.
They traveled at night, and then they would stop in camp, and they would have to assess what news there was, which ways was safer, which ways was not. Many had become ill. They actually had no food many, many days.
His mother and 2 sisters did not survive the 18-month journey. But Khenpo and his older brother, the Venerable Khenchen Palden Sherab Rinpoche, eventually made it all the way to America, where they played a pivotal role in bringing Tibetan Buddhism to this country.
And even their father came here and lived here for 10 years. These wonderful Khenpos have encountered such a difficult life and yet being able to express it and turn it into this incredible message.
In 1993, they established Padma Samye Ling, just off Buddha Highway in the western Catskills of upstate New York.
I remember the first days they were walking on the land and there was really nothing here, it was completely bare. They had their Tibetan hats on. And I really thought they brought part of Tibet here and they have their land now.
The temple is a replica of Samye Monastery, one of the first in Tibet.
And it has like all the traditional aspects the Tibetan Buddhist monastery retreat center would have in Tibet, as an extensive library, year-round instructions from total beginner level to like more advanced practices. And it goes all the way back in the lineage to Buddha Shakyamuni.
So this is the one way in assembly of all of the enlightened beings of the different universe here, and as well as many enlightened beings with us from India to Tibet. May it really the energy brings as like satellite disk that transmitting the great energies of love and compassion, kindness and truth to all everywhere, and therefore the universe of the world become peace and harmony and calm.
We will return after these messages.
Christian Science is a religion based on the healings of Jesus as written in the Bible. It's frequently mistaken for Scientology.
There is no relationship between Scientology and Christian Science, but people often get them confused. Christian Science is very much solidly in the Christian tradition.
Similar name that is about the only thing that we share. One is a Christian church founded on the Bible.
Christian scientists believe that God is unconditional love and always present, and that with this faith, spiritual healing can take place.
It is not faith healing. It is an understanding of our identity as spiritual beings. If God is spirit, which the Bible affirms that he is, and God made us in his image, then we can only be spiritual.
The religion was founded by Mary Baker Eddy. Born in New Hampshire in 1821, she was raised in a strict Christian household.
She was lively but very prone to illness. And her father consulted doctors about her, and one of the famous stories was that one of the doctors said she shouldn't do too much study because her brains were out of balance with her body.
In 1866, at the age of 45, she took a serious fall.
She's on her way to a temperance meeting in nearby Lynn, Massachusetts, slips on the icy roads, falls, and is knocked unconscious. And it looks like she's on death's door.
She was in a dark place. The physician that was called said she wasn't going to live more than a couple of days. She took her Bible, and after reading a healing of Jesus, she felt a change in her body. So much so that she got up and dressed and walked downstairs. She didn't really know what had happened, but I think all these signs were beginnings to her of a discovery that she felt was just waiting to be made.
She basically dedicates the next 3 years of her life to understand what had happened to her. And she comes to feel that the Bible really is revealing spiritual laws. And that these spiritual laws are available for anyone if they understand them to practice in their own life.
She called her discovery Christian Science and felt that others could be healed with this knowledge.
She successfully treats women. I believe her name is Mrs. Gale. And doctors have been unsuccessful in helping this woman. And the doctors are really interested. How did you do this? And they say, you really need to write this down. You need to share this.
She published her discoveries in a book and called it Science and Health.
And there are all kinds of accounts of people with a certain challenge or illness coming to hear her talk and leave completely healed.
Word spread, and Christian Science soon attracted followers and skeptics.
For that time, for the 18th century, that was not the role of women. This was threatening the status quo. At the early 20th century, the medical profession was coming into focus, and this was inconsistent with that. So there was a lot of resistance. There was the concern that Jesus healed, so if we heal also, then that's saying that he wasn't special. And it's like, no, I think that's a misunderstanding. You know, Jesus said, the works that I do shall you do also. Christian Science wasn't something new. Christian Science was putting on paper the ideas of Jesus' experience from 2,000 years ago.
in her theology, she really challenges the whole idea of the fall, that there is a separation between humanity and God. Disease is thought of as an erroneous condition. God could not create anything that's flawed, anything that is subject or vulnerable to disease.
Christian scientists encounter the same challenges as everyone else. But then what follows may be different. The more that we see that as an idea of God, we cannot be separated from Him, the less it appears in our daily experience. When Christian scientists heal, generally we don't think of it as terms of, oh, that's when I was healed of a stomach bug, a sore foot, or whatever. That's when I realized that my identity as a spiritual idea is unbroken, forever intact. The evidence humanly may be a change of circumstances.
Over the years, members of the community have faced criticism for not seeking medical attention when injured or sick.
There's no prohibition on going to a doctor. Christian Scientists are free to use whatever kind of treatment they would like.
There have been some Christian Scientists who have taken things to extreme, going far beyond what Mary Baker Eddy would have taught about that. But she definitely championed the right of the individual to choose the type of health care that they felt was best for them.
In 1892, Mrs. Eddy established the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts. Today, there are churches and Christian Science reading rooms in over 70 countries around the world.
And it's completely a church of lay people. There are no professional clergy. Sunday services are conducted by two readers. One reads from the Bible, the other from Science and Health. And then every Wednesday, there's testimonies in Christian Science healing.
When she was in her 80s, Mary Baker Eddy found herself the victim of personal attacks in the newspapers.
She was the victim of yellow journalism during the last decade of her life. For instance, the New York World, there were very unfair and false attacks. They said that she was dying, that she had a member of her household impersonate her on her daily carriage rides. They claimed that she was mentally incompetent and couldn't manage her own affairs.
Partly as a way to counter the negative claims, she created the Christian Science Monitor. The paper's motto is to injure no man, but to bless all mankind.
That's her language from 1908. And I think everybody here thinks about that. And again, not in religious terms, but just in terms of wanting to be constructive. We think of our readers as people who care about the world. They don't want to be frightened by the news or just titillated by the news. Ultimately, they want it to go somewhere constructive.
Mary Baker Eddy was 89 years old when she died.
She died December 3rd, 1910. About a week before, she had come down with a bad cold. The doctor who signed her death certificate said natural causes, probably pneumonia. The embalmers actually produced an affidavit saying that her body was in excellent shape for a woman at that age.
Her life is such an inspiration. Her commitment, her courage, her perseverance. She says herself, if you look for me elsewhere than in my writings, you lose me rather than find me. Don't look to her as a person, look to the significance, the importance of what she wrote. How could that work not have been inspired? Because it defied all the human norms of the time. That's a pretty cool example to follow.
We will return after these messages.
The Jain religion originated in India more than 2,500 years ago. It's a tradition based on the teachings of a series of spiritual figures, the most recent of whom was known as Lord Mahavira.
Lord Mahavira was a Jena a human being, not of a divine birth, born to humans like you and me, who ended this endless cycle of life and death to which all humans are susceptible, and showed us the path by which we all could do the same.
A core tenet of the faith is ahimsa, or non-violence.
Not to cause injury to others, anybody, all forms of life.
Jains believe that all living things have souls, even a blade of grass or a small insect. When you harm others, you are harming yourself.
Human life is very precious because in Jainism, it is the sole opportunity for any living being to be able to break this endless cycle.
Jainism's strict adherence to non-violence influenced Mahatma Gandhi, who in turn inspired Martin Luther King Jr.
This life that I have is my own creation. Through my thoughts, my deeds, and my actions, I made it. And if I have not done it right, I can undo it.
The faithful seek to minimize their impact on the natural world, and they are strict vegetarians.
All of our efforts, this entire life, this entire path of purification is intended to reduce our karma, to be able to bring back the soul to its original, pristine, glorious, resplendent status.
Temple worship is not mandatory, but provides an opportunity for inspiration.
Our worship is not in the nature of asking anything. The sole purpose of the idols in front of us is to act as a role model. They are our heroes. So we go to the temple to commit ourselves to be more like them and to reach the same destination that they reached.
Within the faith community, there are monks and nuns.
Monks and nuns have given up all possessions. They have no property, they have no bank account, they don't own anything. All that they are interested in and are engaged in is the pursuit of higher spiritual growth.
In keeping with the tenet of nonviolence, they sometimes wear masks to prevent killing even the tiniest microbes. For centuries, Jain monks and nuns were only permitted to travel by foot. But in 1975, one monk broke with tradition.
Acharya Sushil Kumar Ji was the first Jain monk in at least 2,000 years who took the unprecedented step of traveling outside of India to promote the message of Mahavira.
He's affectionately known as Guruji, meaning teacher or spiritual guide.
He was taking one of the most significant steps in the Jain religion in modern times. When he came here, he had no possessions, no nothing.
In 1983, with the help of a small group of Americans, he founded Siddhachalam in Blairstown, New Jersey.
I am told that it was an abandoned place for many years. He had with him a few other monks. They told him this place was not suited for spiritual pursuits. Anytime they try to meditate, there is some kind of a serious disturbance. So he said, and that is precisely why I chose this spot. Because it is here that my powers of meditation, my yogic powers, will transform this place so that generations to come will call this a place of pilgrimage.
Only somebody like Guruji could have had that foresight. How in 25, 30 years or 50, 100 years, a place like this will evolve. I mean, he saw it when nobody even imagined or dreamt that Jain temples will exist in this part of the world.
Everything was right about it. Guruji wrote in 1983 If you come here to do business, you will get success. If you come here to play, you will enjoy. If you come here to meditate and seek enlightenment, you will get it. All sects of Jainisms, non-Jains, anybody who believes in the message of Ahimsa, this place belongs to that person.
Today, the land is an oasis for all living things.
This place, as you can see, it connects with the nature, and our nature is to be in peace.
This place basically gives the food for my soul, food for my mind.
This is not just about convenience. This is about you really want to come here and you really want to spend the time, you want to meditate.
My family has some history with the place, and they knew Guruji from India when he was in India. It's just peaceful vibration, and I can connect to my roots and where I come from.
They recently created their own Shikaji, a sacred site of pilgrimage for Jains. It's the only one of its kind outside India.
What we have here is a replica of Shikharji in the same layout as it exists there. Every Jain wants to be able to go to Shikharji in her or his lifetime, to be at that spot where those people achieve liberation.
In 1992, their much-loved teacher passed away in India.
The body of knowledge that he left for us is our guidance. And our effort is to keep searching for his directions and to keep finding him within us. Guruji is right around us, right here. You just have to have the right pair of eyes.
I'll make this available on Google Drive, I hope. Hopefully it'll let me upload it. But I'll try to make it available on Google Drive. If not, then I'll just upload it to YouTube and put a link. But anyways, so, I mean, there are 3 religions there, and I think I'll talk about each one today, and then I'll talk, probably talk about Buddhism today and talk about the other 2 on Tuesday. We'll see what happens. And I have an old PowerPoint here from a previous course many, many years ago at another school. And I'm just going to use it as a basis. I'll also make the PowerPoint available, but I'll use it as a basis for my talk. I'm not going to go through everything, obviously. I'm not going to try and cram each religion in. That would be crazy. But I do want to, hit some points that are specifically mentioned in the videos so that you know what they're talking about. If there is anything like a creed, I like, as you might have noticed, I do like to look for creeds or statements of belief, short pithy statements that kind of tell you where religion is coming from. The closest thing to a creed, I think, is this statement, which is called the 3 jewels of Buddhism, the 3 jewels, where you are seeking refuge, you are seeking protection from 3 things. First, the Buddha himself, the man, from his teaching, which is Dharma, which I don't believe they even mention in the section on Buddhism, but it's a major, we've encountered Dharma before, yes, with Buddhism, okay? So shows you here that there's a little bit of a connection between Buddhism and Hinduism. Well, we talked about Hinduism, excuse me, I said Buddhism. So there's a connection because they both come from India, so that sometimes you'll find the same concepts. So the teaching of the Buddha, Dharma, and then the community of Buddhists, which is called the Sangha. Sangha is the name for the community of those who are Buddhists. Okay, so I take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, And in the Sangha, how many Buddhists are there in the world? Well, from my last estimate, and this probably has increased, I would say, but the last estimate that I have is around 376 million Buddhists in the world. But it's probably up towards 400 million by now. Trying to remember, this estimate I think is from 2006, which within the last 20 years was probably increased to around 400 million. But I'll say 376 million. In comparison to the other religions we've studied, except for Judaism, it's really not that large. It's very influential religion, a very old religion. But if you compare it to like Christianity, over 2 billion, or Islam, which is approaching 2 billion, it's 1.6 billion, and Hinduism, which is around maybe a little bit over 1 billion. It's not, given its length and its influence, it's actually not a very large religion numbers wise. So 376, maybe 400 million nowadays. The religion comes from this guy that they were mentioning, Buddha or Buddha Shakyamuni, but they didn't give you his name, I don't believe. Oh, actually, I think maybe the guy did mention it. Gautama Siddhartha or Siddhartha Gautama. You can have it both ways. I'm trying to be a little bit clever here in how I put it on my PowerPoint. Because, how so? Because Siddhartha is actually his personal name and Gautama is the family name. So I put the family name first because that's typically Asian practice. If someone is from Korea or Japan or China and a lot of other Asian cultures, Arabic culture does the same thing. Even some European cultures like Hungarian culture does the same thing, where the family name comes before your given name. So my family name is Dunn, my given name is Matthew. So in those cultures, I would be known as Dunn Matthew. And the same thing here. Gautama is his family and Siddhartha is his name. But for sake of convenience and simplicity, I'll just call him the Buddha, which is his title. Just like with Jesus the Christ. He is Gautama, he's called Gautama Buddha or Gautama the Buddha. Again, utilizing the family name Gautama. So the Buddha, the enlightened one or the awakened one. Awakened is probably, I guess, I think a better translation than enlightened, although enlightened is the most common way people will translate Buddha. But Buddha really means to wake up, okay, to wake up from sleep in that sense. You wake up, now your eyes are wide open and you see the light. Okay, you see things as they are. Okay, so Buddha, that's what the Buddha means. He is the enlightened one, the one who has awakened to the truth of reality. He is also and was called Shakyamuni in the video, just so you know what Shakyamuni is. He was born in northern India, way up here in northern India. This is the map of India, most of India, I should say. And this purple section here is the country of Nepal. Okay, but all of this was considered India at the time of his birth. And in this country, which is now Nepal, so I would note that it's in modern day Nepal, there was a tribe called the Shakya tribe or the Shakya clan, and he was a member of that clan, the Shakyas. And so Shakya, what does Muni mean? Muni means a wise person, a sage. So literally Shakyamuni means the wise man or the sage of the Shakya clan. So when it's called Buddha Shakyamuni, now you have two titles actually. The enlightened one, Buddha, the awakened one, of who's the wise man of the Shakyas, the Shakyamuni. So that's what he means. That's what the monk meant when he said he's Buddha Shakyamuni. And when you study Buddhism, all sorts of titles are given to the Buddha. So it becomes, for me, very confusing to keep them all together. They all have some sort of meaning and connection to Buddhist theology, obviously. So you'll see him called all sorts of things. Buddha Amitabha, Buddha Avalokiteshvara, Adi Buddha, Buddha Parinirvana, all sorts of names. And this is just one of the Buddha Shakyamuni, the wise man of the Shakyas. When did Gautama, or the Buddha, excuse me, I said I just say the Buddha. When did the Buddha live? The accepted chronology or dates are these, 563 to 483 BC. However, I mean, these are the accepted dates and the dates that you'll probably see in textbooks, but it's hard to tell when the Buddha actually lived. Why? Because of course we don't know, no one says when he was born in any of the Buddhist documents we have, and the Buddhist histories, the histories of the Buddha's life are written several centuries after he even lived, apparently. So it's hard. What we do know is that he lived either 100 years or 200 years before an Indian emperor named Ashoka, this man Ashoka. So that's as close as we can get. Now you would say, well, okay, as long as you know when Ashoka lived, then you just go 100 years or 200 years in the past, and you've got a sense of when the Buddha lived. Problem. We don't know exactly when Ashoka was born either. We have a rough idea of when Ashoka was emperor, but we don't have definite numbers. So it's very hard to date Buddha, and I think that, before I get into that, in the past 10 years, they've been doing archaeological digs in Nepal in the town where the Buddha is said to have been born and lived. And they found a structure. They were excavating a structure about, I think it was 2013. They're excavating a structure, and underneath that structure, as they were digging down, they found a layer which belonged to a Buddhist shrine. Okay, a Buddhist shrine, so a structure that was honoring this man, the Buddha. Okay, and when they dated it, they were able to date it to 550 BC. 550 BC, so clearly before this date, which would push his birth much farther back, because if the shrine that they found, if it's true, and I actually sent an email to the archaeologist over in England just to see, since 2013, has it been verified? Because I couldn't find anything after that, just the article, the news article that they had found this. Because it would kind of shake up the dating for the Buddha. So I'll assume that it was true because it was reported. And, if you have a shrine in 550 BC, obviously the Buddha the man would have had to have come before that shrine, so be before 550. And it would have to be built sometime after his death, probably give or take a few decades, you would think, for someone to decide to build a shrine to the guy. So, that pushes us into the 600s, I think. And so a date of sometime in the 7th century BC, I don't think is out of line now. Even though if I ask you on a test, wink, wink, hint, hint, I would go with the standard, still what is considered the standard date of dates of 563 to 483, just because it's, who knows? It's so far long ago and people weren't keeping accurate records. But if that archaeological find is correct, probably the Buddha sometime in the 7th century, then again could be much earlier. You never know. I wasn't there. So the 600s BC, maybe. So it is an issue when the Buddha even lived, even though I'm giving you actual dates. But anyways, who was this man, the Buddha? Well, traditionally, Buddha is not considered or venerated or worshipped he's not worshipped as a god. He's not a god, nor is he the appearance of a god. And he's just a human being. He's a human being. But he's not a savior or a redeemer either. Okay, he's not a savior. He didn't come to save anybody. At least in the traditional accounts. You will find forms of Buddhism today that do kind of treat the Buddha as a savior and a redeemer figure. But there are Buddhist texts, dialogues of the Buddha, where the Buddha is very clear. I ain't no savior. I don't save you. You save yourself. what's more important than the Buddha is really the Dharma, his teaching. He brings the teaching. He brings the Dharma, telling people how to save themselves. And the Dharma is more important than him. The Dharma exists forever. The Dharma is timeless. Now, they mentioned the story of the Buddha. He, I guess I won't give the name, it doesn't matter. I already told you, but he's born in a town in northern India. He's born to a royal family. He's a prince. And just to give you a very short Cliff's Notes version of his story and how he got to being the Buddha, there was a prophecy. You know, some crazy guy, some crazy prophet came up to his parents and his father, who's the king, and said, "Your son will be either a great ruler or a great holy man." Well, the father, being a ruler, wanted his son to be a ruler. He didn't want him to be some, naked holy man wandering around, wandering down the highways and byways of India. So he was going to thwart this prophecy. He was going to make sure that his son would become a ruler. So what he did was he just didn't let the Buddha go anywhere. He kept him in the palace, gave him food, gave him women, gave him entertainment, all the pleasures that you could want, and tried to keep him from the outside world. Didn't let him go out and travel very much. And what happens is the Buddha does go out from time to time. He's not generally allowed to go out. If he ever does go out, he has to go out with handlers or bodyguards or whatever you want to call them, but more like handlers to make sure he doesn't wander off and find out like what life is about and fulfill this prophecy. But nevertheless, what happens is this: Buddha goes out a few times, 4 times. And hence these things in Buddhist history or Buddhist religious history are called the 4 encounters. 4 times he goes out in a chariot, and I showed you a picture of that in the video. And while he goes out one time and he sees a sick man, a man who has an illness, he's clearly sick. He goes at another time and he sees an elderly man, an older gentleman, which I don't know why he was surprised by that, because weren't there old people in the palace? He never said, his parents weren't getting older, I don't know. But anyways, this shocked him that he saw an elderly person in addition to a sick person. People get sick. Okay, I guess Buddha never got a cold. And then finally he sees next he sees a dead man. He sees a corpse on another journey outside the palace. And, each time he asks his handler, like, what is this about? What are these things? He's naive. And, his handlers just kind of explain to him that this is the way of life. People get sick, they get old, they die. And if they were true religious Hindus, they probably would have added, but they come back. They come back again, samsara, they die, but they're reborn. But they're reborn again to the same stuff, sickness, oldness, aging, and then another death. On a final journey, the Buddha sees a holy man. He sees a Hindu holy man, a guy, probably half naked, who's there meditating, fasting, not eating, saying his mantras, chanting his mantras, and seeking liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth. And that impresses the Buddha. He sees there a solution to his disquiet, because this holy man seemed to be peaceful. He seemed to be content with his lot and his life. And so the Buddha realized that all of his life's pleasures, all the pleasures that his father had given him and tried to make him value, were really vain and worthless. They were really nothing. He wanted true knowledge. Jnana Marga, eh? Because remember, he's not a Buddhist. He's the Buddha, yes, but he's a Hindu. He's a young Hindu man in northern India. So he follows the path that Hinduism sets out for him. Okay, he tries to follow the margas. Okay, and so, I'll get to that in a moment. It doesn't matter. Just looking at my notes, you don't need to know He decides that he himself will become an ascetic. He will follow the path of this holy man that he sees. So the prophecy is fulfilled despite the father's efforts. And so he goes and he joins a group of holy men, and he follows the path that Hinduism kind of sets out. So a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, fasting, so not eating a lot, praying a lot to the gods, devotional practices, chanting mantras, all this stuff. In fact, Buddha starves himself to the point where they have even statues of this. Buddhists make statues of this to remember this point in his life, where you can see his ribs and everything, and so he was just skin and bones, but he was still not happy, and he felt like, I've done all the things that my religion tells me to do. I've done them perfectly, and still. Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Lover. And still, I don't feel at peace. I'm not satisfied. The feeling of satisfaction was not there. And so, while he's there with his friends, I shouldn't say they're friends, but his fellow holy men, and they're fasting and they're meditating and they're doing their thing, and not eating, not working. People would, and people still do this today. You'll see this in India. People will do this. Because you'll see, if you ever go to India, you can look on YouTube and stuff, you'll see there'll be holy men on the street corners, just there, just sitting there, either doing yoga or meditating, and people might come by and give them a little bowl of rice or something for food, and that's what happens with the holy men. People would come by and leave food for them, but they wouldn't touch it, of course. You couldn't touch it, at least not when anybody was around who could see, because you were supposed to be detached. You were fasting, you're a holy man, so you're not eating a lot of food. You might eat as much as you need to stay alive, but you're not supposed to be concerned with those things. You're a holy man. Well, the Buddha reaches out and takes some of the rice and eats it, and that scandalizes, that shocks the fellow holy men that are with him, and they think like Buddha's a sellout. He's broken, I guess I don't know if it was an actual vow, but some unwritten vow or unwritten rule, just of how things are supposed to work. You don't do this. And so he has to leave his group. They look down on him. They look at him negatively for what he did. And so he leaves because he doesn't feel like he was really finding the answer, and he needed to find the answer. So he goes to a tree, sits down under the tree, and decides to think it through and meditate on it, you could say, until he comes to an answer. This is, this is not an unusual thing in people's lives. I think all of us, or maybe many of us, or some of us, have maybe had some points in our life where there's something that's so important, you just need to take some time to think it out. You need to be alone, you need to go somewhere and you're like, I'm not going to leave until I figure this out. And that was kind of his experience. He knew there was something that was disturbing him. He didn't know what, but he did know that the practices he had tried from the Trimarga, from what Hinduism was telling him to do, didn't really work for him. So that's what he does. He goes and he sits under a Bodhi tree, hence the Buddha. The word Bodhi means enlightenment or awakening. And so it's just, he's named after really the tree. It's aptly named, I guess. You can't make this stuff up unless they did for the benefit of the story. But the name of the tree is the enlightenment tree, and that's where he goes. Maybe the name is why he chose it. He was seeking enlightenment. Anyway, so when he is under the Bodhi tree, he becomes the Buddha. He becomes awakened. He realizes what the answer to his problem is. Actually, I want to make that. Just looking at my notes. That's why I make something. A little note for myself. Talk about this after. Okay. Now he doesn't, so he reaches enlightenment. He reaches enlightenment. And that statue, that picture of the statue that I have there is a representation of this event when he reaches enlightenment. This is the Buddha. He's in the lotus position, meditating under the tree. I mean, the tree is not there, I guess, but he is supported. He's sitting on a snake. You see the snake is coiled underneath him, and then he's surrounded by the snake head with many other snake heads. Does that remind you of somebody? Someone lying on a snake with many snake heads over him, covering him? Have we seen that before? Maybe. Someone saying no? Don't say no, please. Because we have Vishnu. If you go back to the PowerPoints and look at the, when I talked about the Trimurti and talked about the three gods of the Trimurti, Vishnu, remember, he has a snake, which is also considered like an avatar of himself. So I kind of made the comment that you see Vishnu kind of sleeping on himself because he's sleeping on a snake, which has a multi-headed snake, which is covering him. Remember, he sleeps during the time of peace between the end of one period of time and the beginning of the next period of time. Once the universe ends, it restarts. But in between, there's this long period of peacefulness, I should say, or nothing much going on, when Vishnu is sleeping on himself on this serpent. So you might notice that there is kind of crossover between the imagery of the two religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, which makes sense if Buddhism is ultimately an Indian religion, even though it's actually not very much practiced in India nowadays, or for a long time, actually. So you see that this crossover in the imagery, even in the yogic posture. You know, he's clear. This is, you know, he's seated like an Indian yogi, okay, practicing yoga meditation. So what happens is he is enlightened. He is awakened to the reality of the universe. He's awakened to what the problem is and what's been disquieting him and its solution. And so he enters nirvana. He enters the state of enlightenment, where he's no longer bonded to, I guess you could say, the physical world anymore. But at the moment that, well, you know, the question is, should he go and teach others? Should he go and bring others to the same realization that he has had? He's reached the solution. Should he go and teach others? And at that point, a demon shows up. A demon shows up to stop him, you know, because the world is filled with, you know, sickness and misery and pain and death, and the demon likes that. You know, that's a demon stock in trade, you know, bad stuff. And so a demon shows up in the story and is like, no, Buddha, don't do that. And first he tries to scare the Buddha. That doesn't work. He tries to scare him out of doing it. He also tries to tempt him with like lustful things like naked women and stuff to try to kind of divert Buddha's energies. That doesn't work with the Buddha. And then finally, this demon tries to use reasoning with Buddha, and that actually starts to work. You know, the demon is like, says to Buddha, well, you know, why should you waste your time? You know, you've reached the end of your goal. You know, you've answered the question that you had. You've reached your goal. So, you know, what is the point of going back? You know, go forward, go into your goal and be at bliss or peaceful or happy or whatever nirvana is, because it's really a concept beyond description. Anyways, and in fact, if you do go out and decide to go out and teach people, well, people are dumb, people won't understand you, or people are lazy, they won't care, they won't do what you say anyways, you know, so what's the whole point? You'll be wasting your life. And that actually starts to work on the Buddha. He starts to reconsider, like, oh, maybe, you know, I have kind of reached my goal, you know, I don't have to go back, you know, this is about me. I don't have to go back and be a teacher. But as Buddha is reconsidering, a god appears, a god we might be familiar with by the name of Brahma. So one of the Hindu gods appears in Buddhist history, surprisingly enough. Brahma appears and is like, shut up, demon, and explains to the Buddha that yes, you have an obligation to share your enlightenment and what you've learned with other people, even if people don't listen or understand, and in this, Brahma gives the example that people are like the lotus flowers that float on the water. Okay, again, the lotus flower is an image you find in Hinduism. It's big in Hinduism and has different meanings and stuff. And it becomes a big image of Buddhism as well. And he compares, Brahma says they're like lotus flowers. They float on the water, and beneath the roots go right down into the muck, into the dirt, into the mud. Okay. And so, yeah, people are really like these filthy lotus flowers. However, a lot of people are, but some of them are trying to push up to the light. Some of them are straining and looking. They're waiting for this. They're waiting for this teaching that will lead them to enlightenment and to awakening. So at least for those people, you have a duty to go and teach them. And that convinces the Buddha, and so he does. He goes and starts preaching his message. And his message begins with what is called the first sermon. The first sermon. He goes to this place, according to tradition. This is a picture of this garden or this park in India called Deer Park. And they've built, a shrine there, a Buddhist shrine, and you have a building, could be a temple or some, but they're, these are a religious shrine to commemorate this place as the spot where people believe that the Buddha preached the first sermon. And in the first sermon, he outlines what he's discovered about life and reality and what to do about it. And there you have a definition. According to Buddhist terminology, they describe this as the setting of the wheel of Dharma in motion. Okay, they kind of view Dharma as a wheel that turns through the universe, which is why I have this wheel as the background for the PowerPoint. And he's the one who gets the wheel spinning in this age that we live in. Because he's the Buddha for our age, but I should mention that there are Buddhas for every age before and ages that will come after. The Buddha is not unique. There are many, many Buddhas for different ages of time. He's the Buddha for us now. Okay, so he spins the wheel of Dharma. So he sets the wheel of Dharma in motion. In his first sermon is so convincing to people. It's so convincing to people that people in the crowd who are listening, some of them immediately enter into enlightenment as well and become his followers. They're so impressed by what he says. So that kind of indicates the force of his ideas, that people are immediately enlightened without any kind of effort, I guess. It's a miracle. What did the Buddha figure out? Well, what the Buddha figured out were these four things. They're called the Four Noble Truths. He comes to these four realizations while he is meditating under the Bodhi tree. Let me write that on the board before I forget. The Bodhi tree. The first is knowing that there is suffering. Interesting. The knowledge of suffering. Knowing that life is full of pain and misery. That is a universal human experience. So that's where he's starting from. That the universal experience of humanity is one not of happiness or joy, but of suffering, misery, and pain. So he realizes that. So that's his first truth, the first thing that he realizes. But that realization leads to a question of, where does this come from? Why are people suffering? And he realizes, or comes to the realization, that the suffering that people experience is due to the effects of karma. Okay, so this idea of karma. People are affected by karma, which is generated by their desires, by their cravings. You can use either word, okay? People have craving and desire, and that's what motivates their whole existence. Craving and this craving or desire is misplaced. Craving and desire for what? Well, ultimately to believe that we or anything actually exists, that anything that exists, including yourself, has a stable basis for its existence. I don't want to say meaning, because I shouldn't say that it has no meaning. It doesn't mean that. But it means that we think that we really exist, that there is a permanent self that exists now, and if you're a Hindu, will exist into another life, and so on and so on and so on, provided you don't achieve moksha or liberation at some point. But even then, liberation, there's still an Atman, there's still a soul or a permanent self that is liberated and continues and unites with Brahman, okay? We want to believe this, and we want to believe that about ourselves, but we also want to believe it about the world, that the world has some sort of permanence. And this causes us suffering because the world is really not permanent. The world changes. One day you're healthy, the next day you're sick. You're sick and then you get healthy again, but you can also get sick and you die. You get old and you die, okay? So there's no permanence to it, and yet we want that. And so people can feel misery and pain over that. People who are like, oh, I wish I were 20 again. Well, you won't think that, but maybe you think, well, maybe I wish I were 15 again. Or maybe you don't think that, but eventually you will think that. Yeah, eventually, when you're pushing 50, you know, I don't hear a lot of 50-year-olds saying, man, I can't wait till I'm 60, baby. Then I'm going to let it all break out, you know? I'm going to let it loose. No, people, you know, or I can't remember. I wish I could remember all the things I did and stuff like that, or, you know, but I can't, or all these things. These cause us psychic pain or even physical pain. And the reason is because, yeah, things are changing and we have no control over them. They're not permanent. We're continually growing and changing. And we can't keep things like the way we want them to be. We don't have any control over that. It's out of our control. So that's the origin of our suffering, our desire for believing that there is permanence to ourselves and to the world around us when there really is none. So what do we do about it? How do we eliminate that desire or craving that is the source of suffering? Well, we have to extinguish desire. We have to get rid of the desire. We have to get rid of the craving for permanence that really doesn't exist in the world or in ourselves. Which leads to the next noble truth, which is, how do we do that, Buddha? Well, he devises ways that you follow. Some of you have been exposed to at least one form of those ways, or one tradition within Buddhism of trying to do that, which is Zen Buddhism. And, you know, if you went to the Zen Buddhist meditation, either on Zoom or you're able to go someplace, the whole purpose of the meditation is getting right to this. It's not, I understand that, you know, thoughts come into your mind and they teach you to, well, let the thoughts go, relax the body, you know, don't, you know, and it can have a calming effect on the mind. And that's, you know, those are all good things psychologically, I think, but that's not the purpose of mindfulness or meditation for Buddhists. What's meant to show you is that once you kind of let go of all the thoughts, good, bad, and indifferent, that are coming in, once through meditation, you're able to just recognize the thought, categorize it, let it go, there's really nothing there anymore. And if you think about it, all that really was there were different thoughts, some good, some bad, some indifferent, all different in a way, not the same thoughts. Some thoughts from the past, some thoughts maybe about the future, some thoughts now. So they're all different, they're not permanent. And so there really is not a you there that's having those thoughts. There's really emptiness. That's what it's trying to lead you to, the realization that it's really empty. And all the you that you think is there is really just this conglomeration of different thoughts and ideas, even from previous lives, because Buddhists believe in, you know, the cycle of death and rebirth too. that are all just there making up what you think is a you, but it is really not. It's an illusion. And that's what the Zen meditation is trying to get you. All the stuff about ringing bells and having certain posture and stuff, it's very rigid. I think it's very rigid. It seems very rigid. Yes, you know, you have to do these things for Zen meditation, but they're all built like, and they show you with Tibetan Buddhists. The Buddhists, they have all these rituals, but as the guy said, they're all they're supports, they're props for your meditation. They're supposed to kind of put you at that place where then your mind can be ready to understand and be enlightened to the fact that there is no permanence. So the Buddha rejected the idea of the Atman. Atman, remember Atman, our friend from Hinduism, yes? The permanent self. The Buddha said that Atman doesn't exist. Now, Hinduism also says that the world is an illusion. The world is impermanent, that it's not just one thing only that is the source of existence, that there are many things that are coming into and out of existence. So that idea is there in Hinduism, the idea of Maya or illusion, that we want to see things as permanent when they're really not. They're becoming and not becoming, going out of existence, coming into existence. But the Buddha takes it a step further and says that even applies to the Atman. At least for Hinduism, the Atman is there and it's progressing through the different life cycles. But as you may have heard from the monk, maybe you didn't catch it, when he talks, because he kind of quickly said it, he talked about your ego consciousness, you know, ego, I, you know, this I. You could also say Atman consciousness. This I that I think is really there is really not there. And that's what the Buddha rejected. He rejected the idea of the Atman. And that was a true break with Hinduism. Why did he reject the Atman? Because, as I told you, this idea of a permanent stable universe, even a permanent stable self, is merely an illusion. If it applies to the universe, why doesn't it also apply to the Atman, which is part of the universe? I think he was kind of following the logic through of Maya in Hinduism. Why is the Atman kind of kept out of all the, you know, the illusion that the impermanence of the created world, when your Atman is also is part of it and was created as part of it as well. So there is no self. This unity of self of a person is really an illusion. To eliminate this desire for a permanent self, a permanent I that exists, and to reach enlightenment, he proposes various ways, the eight ways, and so it's called the Eightfold Path, the Eightfold Marga, you might say. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the last two you might be familiar with mindfulness and concentration. Concentration would be meditation. You're trying to concentrate the mind in order to realize the emptiness of really anything that you think is permanent, that is truly empty. It doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't mean that you're not something. It just means that you're empty of any true reality of your own. Okay? You are part of all reality in a way. It kind of brings us back to what was it, the Upanishads and what was it, the parable of Uddalaka, you know, when he says to his son, look at the seed and the fruit, you know, you are that and it is you, you know, you are Brahman. It's kind of, and to me, it's almost a way of saying that in a different way, that we're all really each other in a way, where none of us is a permanent self separate from anybody, anyone else. And though we're not each other. If that makes any sense. Hopefully it makes a little sense. But anyways, so concentration, meditation, okay, practices of meditation to help the mind free yourself from those illusions, to recognize that the thoughts that are coming into your head are really not coming from any particular source, and to get rid of them and realize that there's emptiness, and that will enlighten you. Mindfulness, which I know is a big word in in psychology in the last, 5 years or so, especially in the last 5 years, maybe it was before. Of course, modern psychology doesn't tell you that they're ripping off Buddhism. Nevertheless, they are, but the purpose in Buddhism is different. Certainly, you want to be carefully considerate of your motives, which is, kind of how mindfulness, being aware of your motives and why you think certain things and do certain things, being able to categorize the thoughts that come into your head and allow them to go and stuff like that. Okay. But again, the purpose for Buddhism is so that you don't get into desire. You're not attached to those things that you're thinking about. Attachment, they use the word attachment in the video. You don't want to be attached to those thoughts that are coming into your head, because again, they're really not coming from anything. They're there, they're not saying they're not real, but they're empty of any real existence of their own. So, here are some of the ideas I've been talking about. On Atman, there's no self. And what I've mentioned already, but there's the definition there, this idea that all things are coming into existence and going out of existence. We're really a composite of different things, and this is actually kind of a brilliant idea, and I don't think it's untrue in a way, if we can look at our bodies and ourselves as machines, but that things are composed of other things. And nothing that composes us, even down to our atoms, exists in and of itself. Okay, even atoms are composed of other things and other bits. Of course, the Buddha didn't know that, but he realized that things depend on other things. And so where is the ultimate reality? Where is the ultimate foundation of the existence of the thing itself, say a human person? Well, you're a combination of, yes, your brain, but your brain is a combination of different things, of different tissues and different cells. And those cells are a combination of different atoms, okay, and molecules and atoms. So that, I think, even though he didn't know about that, I think the idea is very interesting, that things arise dependently. They're not independent. They don't exist independently on their own. Once you realize this and reach enlightenment just means that in some forms of Buddhism, you can think of it as a heaven that, oh, whoops, I didn't see the time. Sorry about that. I'll see you on Tuesday. Sorry. Apologize. God bless you all. Yes, miss.
The last is on PowerPoint, is not on Blackboard.
Yes, thank you, yes.
Okay. Can you post it so I can take the quiz tonight, please?
Oh yeah, because you need to take the quiz.
Yeah.
Why did you wait so long?
Because I don't know, I do better.
Oh, you know what? Okay, fine. I forget I asked that. Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
I'll do that right now. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, get rid of that. Let me take care of that while I'm thinking about it. Oh, yes, Ms. Seebeck, okay. So have we, I've emailed Polly James, and have you been in touch with her about
Yes.
Thursday or today?
Yes.
Okay, so is it gonna happen?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So I was gonna go last week and then I was on it and then she emailed me saying the link didn't work because it was on Zoom.
Yeah, I understand.
And then the only other one was on Tuesday, but I have class Tuesday nights and it was the same time I have class.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, do it, and it's due tomorrow then,
Great,
tomorrow
yeah.
night. So just get it done, please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, miss.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, yeah, we're right here. All right. Yeah, I'm here. I'm still here. what's going on? Whoops, no, I'm not emailing it. I need to go into Google. Come on. This is me. It should not be sending me to my Google account. It should be sending me to the My Drive account for this class. Yeah, I mean, it's different. It's, all right. Yeah, it's different. It's not the same. So why the heck would MyMU be maybe under going that way? I mean, it should be going to not to this account, but to the other one. Let me sign out. No, it's not showing the account. Why wouldn't it be showing the account? This is stupid. I'm going through MyMU.